So for the first No Kings protest back in June 14th, there was an attendance of around 5 million protesters, and at the time that was one of the biggest, if not the biggest protest in US history. Fast forward just 4 months later, and we now have the second No Kings protest, and approximately 7 million people attended that one. A noticeable 2 million person jump in just 4 months. In just 4 months, 2 million more people wanted to go out and protest this current administration's handling of the country. And there are some key takeaways from this protest that I really want to highlight, that I really want to show, because a lot of people have this misunderstanding of what the protest is, especially from the other side, the people who are against these protests or are in support of Donald Trump. There's this nefarious idea that the No Kings protest is by and large an anti-America protest. And this is bolstered by the fact that the Trump administration tried to label this a hate America protest. Here's Mike Johnson saying just that.
I encourage you to watch. We call it the Hate America rally that'll happen Saturday. Let's see who shows up for that. I bet you see pro-Hamas supporters. I bet you see Antifa types. I bet you see the Marxists in full display, the people who don't want to stand and defend the foundational truths of this republic. And we do. And that's what we're here doing every single day.
Now, it's interesting that Mike Johnson, this is one of the things that they consistently do, is that they try to label the Democratic Party as filled with Marxists, Leninists, Trotskyists, communists, these disgusting Antifa sympathizers. Like, they try to label the Democratic Party as being as extreme as possible, because in a way that's basically rage baiting, right? If you rage bait so many people against the Democratic Party, then that kind of exonerates a lot of the issues that the Republicans are dealing with, or at least it lets people kind of view it with a blind eye, because they're so hyper fixated on how horrible and disgusting the Democrats are. And they do this pretty consistently over and over and over again. It's actually pretty easy to refute, especially if you just look at the No Kings website, or if you look at some of the myriad photos that have come out of that protest. The fact is that the current administration, what they're effectively attempting to do, and successfully, I'm afraid, is they're just trying to label any opposition towards them as these evil Democrat, communists, Marxists, these Antifa sympathizers. They want to bring total destruction upon the United States, and that's why they're doing everything that they can to try to label this protest, again, the biggest protest in U.S. history. They're trying to just label that as these awful Marxist, communist thugs, these disgusting, smelly college students. They don't represent what America really is. They're not fighting for America. They're fighting against America. But again, it's pretty easy to refute, especially if you look at some of the speeches made by some of the most prominent people on the left. Here's Mehdi Hassan, for example, who was at the No Kings rally, gave a speech, and he's one of the most prominent members within some circles of the left.
All week, I've heard Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican members of Congress say that this rally, the No Kings rally, is a hate rally. A hate rally. I'm here because I love this country. I love America. I love the First Amendment. I love our democracy. I love our diversity. Yes, our diversity. And I am not willing to sit back and watch our glorious American multiracial, multicultural, democratic experiment, our constitutional republic, destroyed by the guy from Home Alone 2.
So hardly the words of anyone who legitimately hates America. If anything, he is actually talking about why he loves this country, and he's giving specific examples. And when I attended the first No Kings rally back in June, one of the things that I really loved about the rally was the fact that everyone was dressed up in Americana, at least the one that I went to. It wasn't anti-America, it was pro-America. And precisely because it was pro-America, they were arguing against Donald Trump. Donald Trump violating something that you often don't even see in first world countries like the First Amendment. The First Amendment, I often argue, is one of the most amazing things about the United States. The fact is, if you look at a place like the UK, they don't have protection against freedom of speech, and so you consistently see these infringements on people's ability to say what it is that they want to say. Even if it offends other people, they're constantly being interrogated, they're constantly getting arrested, and it's legitimately a concerning issue. But because we don't have that here in the United States, we have the luxury of living in a country that does value the opinions of people regardless of how unpopular they are. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. That's a fantastic thing, and that's something that is uniquely American. And so with these No Kings protests, no, they're not anti-America. They're pro-America. Someone who is legitimately anti-America would be someone who doesn't care about the opinions of half of the entire country. They don't care about the needs, about the wants of half of the country. And that's precisely what Donald Trump does. And the expectation from the President of the United States, a president who supposedly loves this country, loves the values of the United States and wants the best for their country, the expectation is that this president would be attempting to unite the country as much as reasonably possible. Look, the fact is that half the people in the country right now have views that are completely diametrically opposed to mine. But I would never expect the president to just completely shit on this half of the population just because they hold different views than you. You can acknowledge that those views are dangerous, that they're disgusting, that they're whatever ism you want to apply to them. You can do that while simultaneously recognizing that this is, at the end of the day, people that live within your country and they have grievances, and regardless of what those grievances are, you as president of the United States need to listen to those grievances and need to address the grievances of those people. This is a protest against Donald Trump, someone who has consistently shown that he doesn't care about uniting the country. All he cares about is power. All he cares about is dividing the country even further. If that solidifies, more power to him. What was Donald Trump's response to the fact that about 7 million people decided to go out and protest his administration, to protest what it is that his administration is doing to this country? What was his response to that, to the biggest protest in U.S. history? It was this. Regardless of how much you despise some of the people that live within your country, if you're the president of the United States, the expectation is that you will still try to listen to their complaints, to their grievances. You're the president of the United States. You're not the president of the Republicans. You're not the president of just conservatives. You're president of the entire United States. And the whole point of the project is to keep these states united. But unfortunately, this is a task, this is a commitment that he refuses to abide by. I mean, the protest is literally called the No Kings protest. You can't really get any more American than that. This entire country was founded on the predicate that we shouldn't have kings in the United States. In fact, one of the most wonderful and famous stories of George Washington is that many people wanted him to become king shortly after the war, but he consistently refused to do so because it completely jeopardized the values that this country was founded upon. And so when you have a No Kings protest, and they're protesting what this administration is doing to the Constitution, to the First Amendment, what it's doing to the American populace in general, I'm sorry, it's very difficult to make the argument that this must be the Hate America rally if everything that they are showing is pro-America. I mean, here's Bernie Sanders, who, if there's ever a poster child for the MAGA right to just point at the Democrats and call them evil, disgusting, Marxist, socialist, communist, whatever, one of the people is going to be Bernie Sanders. And here's what Bernie Sanders had to say about his love for America.
The Republican Speaker of the House called these rallies Hate America events. Boy, does he have it wrong. Millions of Americans are coming out today not because they hate America. We're here because we love America. We're here because we're going to do everything we can to honor the sacrifices of millions of men and women who, over the last 250 years, fought and sometimes died to defend our democracy and our freedoms.
So this idea that this protest was predominantly filled with people who hate America and want the worst for this country is just flat out wrong. The fact is, you're the president of the United States. It is your job to unite this country, regardless of what, even if you're correct in some of the Democrats being the most unhinged people in the world, they hate America, whatever. Let's say for the sake of the argument that you are correct and they hate America. It is still your job. It is still your responsibility to unite this country as much as we reasonably can, as much as we possibly can. And there has been zero attempt from this current administration to do just that.